It was past midnight. After tossing and turning in bed for hours, I finally got up to grab some water. The lights in the living room were still on. That night, my cousin Nathan had sent Adam over to stay with me for a while. When I heard what had happened to him, it broke my heart. His wife had betrayed him, and his life had completely fallen apart. Adam, married to the same woman for years, had been blindsided in the worst way. Nathan's son was also struggling. He couldn't handle the situation either. "Megan, please take him in," Nathan had pleaded with me. "He needs some peace." I didn't know Adam well, but I knew the kind of pain he was in. Betrayal from a woman he had loved and trusted had left him shattered. Our family had already endured so much loss. I had lost my husband Daniel 7 years ago. I was 58 when he died suddenly of a heart attack. One moment we were building our dream home, excited for the future, and the next, everything stopped. Daniel's death turned my world upside down, leaving me to navigate life alone. The emptiness was something I had carried for years, but lately, the loneliness had been hitting even harder. Tonight was one of those nights. Are you ready? Because this isn't just some ordinary story. It's about blurred lines, emotions spiraling out of control, and confessions waiting to be spoken. Every moment of this might stir something deep inside you, emotions you didn't even know were there, pushing boundaries you never thought existed. If this is the kind of story you've been waiting for, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support means the world to me. I slowly made my way toward the living room. A few steps in, I saw Adam sitting there, watching some romantic movie on TV. In that moment, my only thought was making sure Adam found some peace during his stay here. But little did I know, life had other plans. Things were already complicated, and it would take just one step, just one, to change everything. Adam turned to me. "Did I wake you?" His voice carried a mix of uncertainty and a desperate need for some kind of peace. I was standing there in my nightgown, but honestly, that didn't matter. I had never felt lonelier than I did right then. "No," I said, offering a soft smile. "I just came to get some water." The truth was, I didn't want to be alone, not tonight. Maybe spending a little time with Adam would make the night less empty. Maybe watching a movie together could make me feel like something in my life was still normal, like peace was still possible. "Come sit, let's watch it together," Adam said, motioning to the empty spot on the couch next to him. It wasn't a tough decision to make. I wanted to feel even just a little warmth, a little meaning. So I sat down beside him. The movie played, but I wasn't really focused on the scenes. There was something inside me, something I couldn't quite name. Adam's presence, the way this man I barely knew was sitting right beside me, the slight nervousness in his voice, it all felt so different. As the romantic scenes unfolded on the screen, I found myself looking away for a moment. The couple growing closer on screen reminded me of things I thought I had forgotten. And then, accidentally, I turned my head slightly and brushed against Adam's arm. I pulled back quickly, a sudden rush of warmth flooding through me. Adam glanced at me, his expression unreadable. "Sorry," I murmured, unsure why my voice was so unsteady. "You don't have to apologize," he said, his tone gentle. "It's nice having company." I nodded, unable to meet his eyes. Yeah, it is. We sat there in silence, the air between us heavy with something unspoken. The glow of the television flickered across the room, casting soft shadows. I could feel Adam's presence beside me, steady and warm. And for the first time in years, the loneliness that had weighed so heavily on my heart didn't feel quite as unbearable. This wasn't just another night. This was something different. Something I wasn't ready to name yet, but something I knew I wouldn't forget. I would remember that night as the beginning of something far more complicated than I could have imagined. That moment was like a signal, a quiet warning of how everything was about to change. The night had taken an unexpected turn. Sitting there on the couch watching a romantic movie with Adam, I couldn't ignore the way I was drawn to him. Even though I was in my nightgown, sitting close to another man after being alone for so long, there was an undeniable tension building between us, something I couldn't push aside. Adam's presence wasn't just comforting, it was making me realize things about myself that I hadn't confronted in years. Maybe it was because I had been alone for so long, but being this close to another man stirred something deep within me. It was confusing, unsettling even, but it was there. That night, something shifted. I didn't relax for even a second until the movie ended, and when it did, I got up, walked to my room, and sat on my bed, lost in thought. What was I supposed to do with these feelings? I had no idea. Sleeping with all those emotions swirling inside me wasn't like hitting the reset button. I tossed and turned all night, unable to escape the thoughts racing through my mind. The lack of sleep dragged me into the morning, exhausted and restless. As the new day began, I sat at the piano, hoping the familiar keys would offer some sense of normalcy. I had been alone for almost 7 years, and every morning I sought comfort in routine. The piano felt like an old friend, one that brought me peace and reminded me of Daniel. As my fingers danced across the keys, I hoped the music would bring me some relief. Then I heard a sound outside. A shadow appeared in front of the window. It was Adam, out for an early morning walk around town. At first, I didn't even notice him, but as the melody filled the air, he opened the front door and stepped inside. I kept playing, unaware that he was watching me, until I suddenly caught sight of him standing quietly, observing. My fingers froze for a second, and that tension from the night before rushed back stronger than ever. But Adam just smiled at me, like nothing in the world was out of place. "That was beautiful," he said. "Thank you," I murmured, my heart still racing. Honestly, that's the best birthday gift I've ever gotten. For a moment, I felt a rush of excitement. When Adam walked in, it felt like the energy in the room had shifted, like we had stepped into a different space altogether. And then he said something in a calm, genuine tone, something that caught me off guard. But each other. "Ay, Tana, it's what I just said, it's true. Watching you, even for just a few minutes, was the best thing I've experienced in a long time. And did you know? I turned 40 today." His words stirred something in me. I averted my gaze, trying to balance the whirlwind of emotions with the warmth of his compliment. For the first time in years, I didn't feel so alone, and I could sense that something between us was starting to change. After the excitement of that morning, I found myself looking forward to the evening. Learning that it was Adam's 40th birthday made me want to do something, anything, to make the day feel special, to bring a little light into his life. An idea struck me, and I turned to him with a playful smile. "It's your birthday today?" I asked. "Well then, let's celebrate. How about we have some wine and cut a cake tonight?" Adam gave me a surprised smile. "Well, if you're suggesting it, I guess tonight might actually turn out to be fun," he said, a playful glint in his eyes. Then, after a brief pause, he added with a teasing grin, "But there's a catch. You have to play the piano for me again. No getting out of it." Laughing, I tried to shake off the nervousness building inside me. "All right," I said, "but only if we open a good bottle of wine and make a proper toast." Even that small exchange left a deeper impression on me than I wanted to admit. I could feel emotions bubbling up, but I pushed them aside, telling myself this was just about making things feel normal for one night. It was just a birthday, a little celebration, that's all. Then Adam said something so casual yet so startling that it threw me off. He looked at me with that same innocent expression and asked, "How old are you?" "What, 45?" I froze for a second. I had always tried to feel younger than my age, but hearing such an honest compliment caught me off guard. I couldn't help but smile. "Oh, not quite," I said, brushing it off. But it was hard to hide the small spark of excitement his words gave me. Inside, I felt like I was being pulled in two directions, lost between the warmth he was showing me and the storm of emotions I was trying to keep in check. By the time evening came, Adam and I had opened our wine and settled in to celebrate. As we talked, we grew closer. His warmth, the way he paid attention, it made me feel at ease. There was something between us, a pull, something growing stronger with every passing moment. Inside, a voice kept telling me to treat this like a normal, ordinary night. But then Adam raised his glass, smiled at me, and asked playfully, "So, when are you going to play something for me? You know you can't get out of it." For a moment I hesitated. Then I took a deep breath and said, "All right, let's do it." I sat at the piano, letting the melody flow, hoping it would calm the storm inside me. With each note, though, I felt something shift, like I was being drawn closer to him. Even as I got lost in the music, I found comfort in the way he listened, the way he appreciated it like it was the most important thing in the world. What I thought would be a simple celebration turned into something else entirely. In that moment, it felt like a glimpse of something I hadn't felt in so long. Something real. My vision blurred as my fingers glided over the keys, each note stirring something deep inside me. Adam's voice echoed faintly in my mind, and it felt like my heart and my head were slowly drifting apart. I was so lost in it all, I didn't even know when to stop. My hands instinctively searched for another melody when suddenly Adam appeared beside me. He placed his hands gently over mine. "You're an amazing woman," he said, his voice soft and a little shaky. "And you play the piano so beautifully." His words echoed in my head, leaving a strange emptiness behind. His warm hands over mine had this way of grounding me, even as my emotions spiraled deeper. "Come on, you're tired," he said softly, his tone calm and reassuring. "Let's sit on the couch for a bit. I've got a surprise for you." With his gentle touch, Adam guided me to the couch. I still couldn't quite process what was happening, but something about the moment felt incredibly profound. When I sat down, my thoughts were still swirling. Then Adam walked back to the piano. I watched as his hands moved effortlessly over the keys, and suddenly he started playing my favorite melody. I recognized it instantly. It was the song I had loved for years, the one that always stirred something deep inside me. As Adam played, my heart raced. Each note brought back memories I wasn't ready to face. I sat there, listening as the music filled the room and ignited something deep inside me. After a while, I couldn't just sit anymore. The melody he played pulled me up, almost like it was calling me. Slowly, I walked toward him, trying to calm the chaos in my chest. When I reached him, standing right next to the piano, I hesitated. I wasn't sure what to do. "You're really good at this," I said, my voice trembling as I tried to mask how fast my heart was beating. "And you're playing my favorite song." My words hung in the air, echoing softly in the room as my emotions clashed within me. "Who are you, Adam?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. You're really getting to me. I've never felt like this before." I was completely overwhelmed, confused, excited, terrified, and happy all at once. Our eyes met, and we were so close I could feel his breath. Looking into his eyes, it felt like I was falling into another world. Just like that, time stopped. The way he looked at me made my heart race. And in that moment, everything around us faded away. The world had narrowed to just the two of us, and suddenly everything made sense in a completely different way. My eyes locked onto his, and for a split second, nothing else mattered. All the confusion, fear, and racing thoughts disappeared, leaving only Adam and me. His hands rested lightly on my waist, firm enough to ground me, but gentle enough not to push. My head was spinning, and I couldn't tell if it was the wine or the emotions rushing through me. Without Adam holding me steady, I wasn't sure I'd still be standing. The look in his eyes made me feel even closer to him, and in that moment, his warmth and the sense of safety I felt beside him gave me balance amidst the chaos inside me. "You need to rest," he said softly, guiding me toward the couch. His voice was calming, and the feeling of his hands on my waist both comforted and unsettled me. When I sat down, his hands lingered for a moment longer, our eyes locking again. I had no idea what to say or how to process everything I was feeling. The warmth of his touch made the night unforgettable, powerful in a way I couldn't quite explain. That night on the couch turned into one of the most thrilling, unforgettable nights of my life. Everything happened so quickly, I barely had time to process it all before morning arrived. When I opened my eyes, I got up and walked toward the living room. The rich aroma of coffee wafted in from the kitchen, pulling me from my half-asleep state. And there he was, Adam, standing in the kitchen, shirtless, making coffee. His body, still warm and strong from the night before, was on full display. And me, well, thinking back to last night sent a strange sensation through my whole body. My nightgown and underwear were still scattered across the floor. Just the memory of it all made me feel both nervous and exhilarated at the same time. Replaying the night in my head only made me more confused. What was going to happen now? How could I even begin to figure that out? But one thing was clear. There was a connection between us that I had never felt before. This night, this moment, felt like the start of something that could change my life forever. Adam turned from the kitchen and looked at me, his eyes soft, his smile warm. A silence fell between us, thick with unspoken words. As I stood there watching him, I tried to make sense of what was happening, of what I was feeling. Everything was such a mess. I had no idea what to do next or how to move forward. It was like I was lost in that moment, completely caught up, but at the same time I could feel something shifting, something unstoppable. Standing there as Megan, all I could feel was a whirlwind of excitement and confusion swirling through me. Since last night, I hadn't been able to make sense of anything. Everything had happened so fast. My clothes were still on the floor. As I glanced at them, I closed my eyes for a second, shaking my head slightly. Everything was so complicated. I couldn't even tell what I was thinking, let alone what I was feeling. I quickly got up and headed for the bathroom. I needed a shower, needed to clear my head, to step away from the whirlwind of emotions I was drowning in. My nightgown and underwear stayed right where they were. I didn't care about the mess. All I wanted was to lose myself under the stream of hot water, to escape the chaos, even if just for a little while. After a while, I stepped out of the shower, wrapping myself in a towel, and then suddenly the door opened. Adam was standing there. I froze. For a moment, neither of us moved. Our eyes met and held, locked in a gaze so intense it felt like the world had stopped spinning. I didn't know what to do. The confusion and emotion in my eyes must have been obvious because I felt completely exposed, vulnerable, and yet somehow I couldn't stop the words rising to the surface and spilling out of me. "I don't even know what's going on," I said, my voice trembling. "What we're doing. I know it's so wrong, but it feels like I'm dreaming." Adam took a step closer, his eyes filled with so many conflicting emotions. Neither of us knew what was going to happen next. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words just wouldn't come. "Your coffee's ready," Adam said, his voice a little shaky. As I looked at him, it hit me how messy and yet strangely beautiful everything was. I didn't think about the future. I just lived in that moment. As I sat down with my coffee, the confusion in my heart still swirled. Sitting with Adam, our eyes locking, remembering what had happened between us, it had all unfolded so fast I could barely keep up. What had we done? What did we feel? I wanted to say something to make sense of it all, but finding the right words felt impossible. "Megan," Adam started, his voice strained. "What we did was so wrong. I know that. Why did we let this happen to us?" His eyes held guilt but also understanding. He knew, just like I did, that things had spiraled out of control. "We should regret this, shouldn't we?" he asked. "We never should have done it." There was a pause. My thoughts were tangled, but finally I found my voice. "Yeah, maybe it all happened so fast. But no, it wasn't right. We let things get too complicated, and now, looking back, it just feels like none of it makes sense. This was a mistake for both of us." There was a weight on my chest, but also a strange relief in admitting that we had both gone too far. Adam stayed quiet for a moment, staring at the floor. Then he looked up at me. Let's pretend this never happened, Megan, he said, his voice steady but soft. I think for both our sakes, we need to leave this behind. What good could come from dragging this on, especially when things are already such a mess? We need space from each other. When he said that, something inside me resonated. He was right. Continuing this would only hurt us both. Yeah, I said, taking a deep breath. Maybe this is for the best. If you leave, maybe that's the solution. It's probably the healthiest choice for both of us. Adam nodded, his expression firm. I need to do this. It's the right thing for both of us. We sat in silence for a few seconds, just looking at each other. In that moment, we both realized how important this decision was. Accepting that what we had done, those dark moments, was just a mistake. Facing that truth might be the first step toward setting things right. Instead of dragging each other down in such a tangled way, giving each other space felt like the only way forward. I hope you enjoyed my story. It's been such an exciting journey, and sharing it with you has truly made me happy. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. Also, your likes and comments mean the world to me. Hearing your thoughts and feelings really keeps me motivated. Your support helps me so much in creating more. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you in the next story. How could I have known that the young man who helped me carry my groceries would end up stepping into my home, only for me to realize I had left some very personal items scattered across the couch, let alone that everything would change from that moment on. I had been living alone for the past 10 years since my divorce. At 52, I had grown used to my solitude, filling my home with small comforts that made the silence bearable. Among them were my books, my music, and yes, a few personal indulgences that I never thought twice about leaving out in the open. My house was my sanctuary. Who else was ever going to see it? That morning started out just like any other. I had only intended to go to the supermarket, pick up some essentials, and return home to enjoy a quiet afternoon. But when I struggled with a heavy bag in the parking lot, a kind stranger offered to help. His name was Ryan. He was 25, full of life, and had an easygoing charm that made conversation flow effortlessly. By the time we reached my doorstep, I found myself inviting him inside for a glass of water as a simple thank you. The moment he stepped into my living room, my stomach dropped. There, in plain sight on the couch, were things I never meant for anyone else to see, items that reflected my most personal moments. My heart pounded as Ryan's gaze flickered over them before meeting mine. "You live alone, don't you?" he asked, a knowing smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. His tone wasn't mocking, just curious. My face burned with embarrassment. "Ryan, let's just pretend you didn't see any of this," I said, trying to muster a lighthearted laugh, though my voice wavered slightly. He chuckled, his eyes still twinkling with something unreadable. "Hey, no judgment here, I get it." He paused, his expression softening. "Being alone isn't always easy." I swallowed hard, suddenly feeling vulnerable in a way I hadn't in years. I had grown so accustomed to my routine, to my carefully contained world, that I never expected someone to step into it and notice what lay beneath the surface. "I appreciate the help today," I said, eager to change the subject. "Let me at least make us some coffee." He nodded, following me into the kitchen. As I busied myself with the coffee maker, I could feel his presence behind me, his gaze lingering. When I turned back around, he was closer than before, his expression thoughtful.